Welcome back to the What Are You Made Of podcast with your boy Mike C-Roc, sponsored by Nations Lending, Home Loans Made Human. We're doing home loans, residential home loans throughout the United States and all 50 states. If you guys need a home loan, looking to buy a house or refinance, especially in this market right now, reach out to your boy C-Roc. My team is ready, prepared, locked and loaded to help you out, walk you through the process. And despite technological advances and all the technology that we have available to us, we keep the human element in it by hand-holding you through the process. Sorry about that. So today's guest, guys, I have another great guest I'm bringing to you. I'm so excited each and every week. I keep outdoing myself. I'll take credit for it. But it's always exciting to have people that are associated with things that you're a fan of. And today's guest, Dana Cavalea, was the coach, strength and conditioning coach, performance coach for the New York Yankees. And, of course, I'm a big baseball fan. Phillies and Yankees are my two teams. And so I got Coach Dana here today with us. He led the team to the World Series championship in 2009. That same year, he was awarded the Nolan Ryan Award, given to the top strength and performance coach in Major League Baseball, as voted by his peers. Coach is also the author of his new book, Habits of a Champion. Nobody becomes a champion by accident. In addition to his on-field coaching, he works as a performance coach and consultant to companies, organizations, and some of America's top CEOs, executives, and Wall Street fund managers and traders, helping them to optimize performance and productivity and sales. Guys, as we all know, we always support our guests. So that book, I want everybody to go out and get it. We're going to talk about where to get it. It'll be in the show notes, but I want to support Coach Dana as we go through this and we learn about his story. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Appreciate you coming on, man. I'm looking forward to hearing your story. Everybody's got a story. This podcast is all about what you're made of and how you use those things that you're made of for the advancement of your future and those around you. So, Coach, what's your story, man?
Hey, man, we definitely all have a story, and those stories are not always as pretty as they look. So, for me, I started my journey as an aspiring baseball player. That was what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a pro player. I wanted to patrol the outfield at Yankee Stadium. And, unfortunately, I didn't have the talent as a player to do that. So I grew up in New York. I was always a big fan of the team. And, I ended up going to college down at the University of South Florida. I played college ball for a year. And, I made a decision that, hey, where do you want to spend your time? Do you want to spend your time trying to make it when you know you're not good enough by your evaluation and by the scouts' evaluation? Or do you want to pursue something in the same field? So part of the advantage of going to school down in Florida is the New York Yankees happen to have spring training about 5 miles away from my college campus. So the story dates back. When I got to school down in Florida, I was excited to be in the land of palm trees, leaving New York where it was freezing. And I got an internship working with the football team at the University of South Florida. So I was an intern in the strength and conditioning department. And, come February, the Yankees come down here for spring training. And I made a decision one day to go up there and watch practice. So I drove up to the field. I parked my car about 1.5 miles away because I couldn't afford parking at the time any closer than that. I walk up, and I'm taking pictures literally through a chain link fence with a flip phone of all these players like Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Andy Pettitte, Roger Clemens, and I'm sending them home to my friends and family. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
As a fan at that point, right? Being like
as a fan. As a fan, yeah. So literally that day I go back to my internship at the University of South Florida, and the head strength coach calls me in. He says, hey, coach, not even coach, hey, Dana, can I talk to you? So I go in his office. I think I'm, in trouble. I did something wrong. And he said, listen, I just got a call from the head guy with the Yankees, and he's looking for someone to basically hand out towels, hand out water, and, watch the weight room while he's on the field. Would you have any interest in that? And I said, you know what, man, as a matter of fact, I just got back from there. I would love that opportunity. When do I start? And he says, well, he wants you there tomorrow. Next day, drive right back up to the field, park my car. This time I have a spot reserved for me, which was amazing. Walk in the main office, and they say, hey, are you Dana Cavalea? I said, yeah, that's me. They threw a credential around my neck. It said C for clubhouse, F for field access in the corner. Brought me into the clubhouse, threw me in Yankee gear, and somebody escorted me right out to that same field I was taking pictures of a day earlier. And I'm in the middle of team stretch. And here I am, 19 years old. I don't know anything about anything. in terms of my field of discipline. And I'm in the middle of this thing. And I said, at this point, I have a pretty amazing opportunity. Now, what are you going to do with it? And that's really how my story started. I had really minimal skills, minimal abilities as it related to my field. And I like to think, though, I put myself in a decent position, to make things happen.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this before we get into more of your career. During the baseball part of it when you're in college, there's a fine line between listening to what the scouts say and what people say and listening to them and not quitting, but just moving on to something different, or pushing through and saying, hey, you're telling me this, but you know what, I'm going to use it as fuel and try to keep going. When is that point? Like when does it really register that, hey man, I better start listening to what they're saying? And,
So it's interesting. I found there's definitely a difference between sports and business when it comes to that mentality. When it comes to your talent set as it relates to a sport and actual ability, if you are somewhat realistic, not that you should be realistic all the time by any means, but I just knew that when I compared my play to others, which is another thing you don't want to do in business, I couldn't make the cut. There were pitches that I couldn't hit. I just couldn't do some of the things that I should have been able to do naturally and innately as a player. That if I wanted to go to the next level, no matter how hard I worked. And here's the thing: I knew because I couldn't work any harder. I trained, I ate right, I slept, I practiced more, I learned, I studied. I couldn't gain any more edge.
Right.
So but one thing I knew in that, the fact that I didn't have that high level of talent as a player, I relied very heavily on coaching to sort of take that sponge and wring it out and get every last drop of talent out of myself. And I had coaches that were amazing that helped me do that. And I had coaches that were really terrible and pulled me back. I allowed them to by hanging around them too long or trusting them too much.
Right.
But ultimately that's what led me to coaching. I said, you know what? If I can't play, what's the fastest way to the Bronx? And I found it.
I was just like imagining going through that myself if it was me, because I always try to do that when I'm listening to someone's story. I actually put myself in their shoes and think like, what would be going through my mind, man? Like no sense of reality, probably. I mean, let's talk about that. Like when you went to that, like, were you just like
freaked out is the word.
Yeah.
I'd say I was freaked out. It was like you were crossing over from, super fan to, wow, like this is
I'm a part of this.
Like I'm a part of this now. I have an opportunity now to not ever have to go back to the other side. And I didn't want to go back to that other side anymore. Once I touched that grass, I mean, I grew up as a kid, growing up on Long Island, sitting all the way up, at the top of the stadium in the nosebleeds, with my father. My parents were both teachers, and we used to just get whatever seats we can get. Usually they were the cheaper seats. We'd sit all the way up top, and I'd say, Dad, when can we go down? And he says, all the rich people sit down there. When they leave, we'll move down. And that's the mentality that I sort of came from. And, this all kind of came full circle, believe it or not. When I was in 8th grade, I had gone to my first Yankee game, believe it or not. It was against the Detroit Tigers. And I remember seeing a guy in the outfield preparing and stretching players. And I always remembered that image. And it turned out years later that was the strength and performance coach of the Yankees. That same guy I would end up working under. That was the guy that made the call to my strength coach that said, hey, I need some help. And here I am now remembering that same image, that same guy, and I'm working right next to him. It's freaky stuff.
Sick, man.
You can't plan it. You can't plan it like that.
So when you were in college and you were studying this, right, in college, right? So what was your major in college?
I went to sports medicine.
Sports medicine. Okay. So you're doing that. And what I like to always talk about, because when the listeners are listening to some of their different stages of their careers, and some may be just getting into something, some may be studying something, some are obviously seasoned, but as you're in the college studying that, and I remember back in my college days, I played football at a small D3 school. The things that go through your head, you have an idea of what you want to do, but you don't necessarily have the confidence, feeling that you're definitely going to get there. Right. And so what did that do for you when you first got there? You set your feet on the field, you're around these players, you're trying to get yourself to really catch on to reality. But what did that do for your confidence? And then how did you go from there? And then what did you do as far as reset your goals, targets, and start stacking wins and confidence to build up to where you got and ended up to?
Yeah. So what's interesting is when I first got there, I mean, I was just a college guy. You know, I was working at Busch Gardens for $7 an hour on the back of a tram, welcoming people to the park to make a couple extra bucks. So my confidence, it wasn't bad. It was just what a 19-year-old's confidence is, starting college out of state, you know, in a foreign land, you know, like Florida. But when you cross over, right, you get on the other side of the fence, and like I said, you get that feeling like you never want to go back. Something clicks inside of you, because what happened was you made the big jump, right, to cross over the fence, like from fan to actually inside of this machine, one of the greatest sports franchises in sports, probably the best. That right there is a confidence boost. And then it comes to the mindset of, I gotta stay. I don't want to leave now. Like, I had a few other things I was doing at the same time, like internship wise. Mm-hmm. And I said, I know where I want to go. I want to go to the big leagues. Like, at that point, I'm going to the big leagues. So it became like, I have to go there. There was a determination, there was a focus, there was a clarity. All the extra noise and all the other, you know, cloudedness that went next to my vision was gone. It was like,
clarity.
Yeah, it's that extreme clarity that you get. And then you start to say, all right, I'm here, but in about 6 weeks, I'm going home because these guys are going back to New York. Now what? So what I did was I said, listen, I got to find an angle. If I want to stay, it's like, you know, you got to demonstrate value. You got to show value. And I did that just through really keeping my eyes open and seeing what was available to me in that situation. So what I said was, player values are going up right now, right? A player back in the day, maybe he'd make a couple $1 million a year. I had players that were making $15, $20 million a year. So player value's high. So that means the organization has to get a return on that value. And I said, what are we doing to identify risk? What are we doing to see, you know, where the player weakness may exist, where that player can't get on the field anymore? And I created what I called my player profile. It was like, picture it as early analytics. And I actually created this whole program in Excel, and it was literally a player profile that would identify the points of weakness in a baseball player, that if those things went off, if those issues actually happened, that player would be down for X amount of time. It was basically a big risk analysis that I put together. And what I did was, the funny part of the story was, when that head guy would go out on the field, I would go up to Brian Cashman's office. I talked to the lady at the front desk that could swipe you up. And I'd go up to his office and I'd propose to the general manager what I just created. And then he'd send me back and say, hey, can you work on this, this, and this? And then I'd come back again. So it was an early demonstration of showing your value and also identifying what's not going on that should be going on, and showing the solution, creating a solution if it doesn't exist.
So that translates really well to business, obviously, and because baseball is a business.
It is.
And so now, so you were how old like this when you were doing this risk analysis? It was like 19, 20 years old?
I was between 19 and 20 years old. Yeah.
I love it, man. And so then do you remember back when this happened, thinking to yourself, should I go and present this to the head trainer, strength and conditioning coach, or should I go right to Brian?
My brain always went to who makes the decisions on me being hired here. Yep. Like, who's in charge of hiring and who's in charge of firing.
Gotcha.
And that's where, and I said, okay, that's my guy. And the one thing that I knew going in, like I said, I didn't know a whole lot about my subject because I was still learning. But what I did know was the power of people. And if you get people to know you, like you, trust you, and actually just enjoy your presence, people want to help people like that. And that's what I did. I made myself like Mr. Relationship. And because it's just who I am. It's not like I was trying to be this just for an outcome. I'm like that today. And people, if they like you, they want to help you. Yep. You know, yep. If you're not a likable guy, but you're the smartest guy in the room, nobody cares. They'd rather see you fail.
Yep, absolutely. And in doing that, developing that relationship comes with you offering help first.
Yeah.
And so you don't really have a relationship if you're not really offering some kind of value or helping someone, right? So that's a huge thing. And we always talk about this, waking up in the morning and making yourself as valuable as possible to your wife or husband, to your kids, to your employees or employer. How can I be the most valuable person? I don't care what I'm getting paid right now. That shouldn't matter. Because
I got paid $0, so it was easy.
So there you go. There you go. So that, and then also trying to be someone, not trying to please people, but being around people and making people feel good.
Yeah.
And so just think about if everybody tried to focus on that, like what kind of world this would be.
Yep. I have a saying that I use when I talk to companies, and I live by it too. Like, people wait for the room to give them energy, and it's like you bring the energy to the room, right? Yeah. Everybody's waiting for something to happen to them, and then they respond accordingly, either good or bad, happy or sad. I don't look at it like that. I say, listen, I'm going to go into the room with my own energy, and the room will conform to you, which is amazing. If you are genuine and real and you're putting the effort in, you'll watch rooms conform.
So true, man. You're talking about, I've run through like these scenarios in my head of the events that I've been to, same exact thing. It is so true. And to make yourself as attractive, I'm not talking about appearance, but attractive to people is valuable, man.
And being yourself is the most attractive thing that you can be, right? And at times, listen, I'm a coach by nature. I'm aggressive, I'm brash, I'm not always the most well-spoken, but I want you to feel the juice, and I want you to feel the fire. And together, we can run through a wall if we have that. We both bring that. And it starts with me bringing that and showing you. And then together, we create this connection. And that connection allows us to do all things.
And if somebody says to them, to that point of just be yourself, well, I don't like myself. I don't think myself is, I don't feel like I have a high self-worth. Well, then what do you do? I know what I would say, but what do you say to that? What should their first move be?
Yeah, well, for me, it's probably maybe getting some help. I'd say that would be a good first step. And that lack of self-worth, here's the interesting part about it. I work with people that are multi-billionaires, and I work with people that are just getting started. And you see a lot of similarities between the two. People that are all the way at the top, they could still have a lack of self-worth, but they may have the intelligence and the talent to make up for it. Where if you may not have that intelligence and talent at that level, you may feel stuck, if your self-worth is lacking. But you have to work to improve that in order to get the train moving down the tracks.
Yeah.
You can just literally find yourself being static and staying in one place and getting more and more frustrated. And then the self beatings that you're giving yourself just keep going on and on and on, and you haven't gone anywhere.
Right. Because you have to help yourself before you can help other people.
Totally.
Right. And people don't do that. They try to offer help with other people, and they have their own issues, and a lot of times then they can't be genuine. So
just look at Instagram. It's a playground for motivational quotes by unmotivated people.
Yep. That's a good way to put it, man.
Yeah.
So what was it like being around people that, they're making millions? They generally have a great idea of what kind of shape they should be in, or what they should be doing. And then here comes this young kid trying to get into their head and coach them.
Yeah.
How do you get over that hurdle or that dynamic?
Let me tell you about how that started. Again, like I said, I'm the first one to admit I didn't know a whole lot going into this thing. I knew what I knew as a player and how I trained. And then what I learned was I trained all wrong. So this was back in the time, again, early 2000s, when core training and functional training was just starting to evolve and progress. So I said, again, I'm always about what's my point of entry? What's my point of differentiation that I could bring to this environment? And what I did was I learned everything I could about core, and I learned everything I could about this functional training. And I became, a quick expert in my craft, right? Because it was so new, and a lot of people weren't doing it, but players were actually inquisitive about it. So the one thing that the guy I worked under let me do outside of handing out the towels and watching the weight room and handing out water, was take the guys through core training. So again, a player would walk in and I'd say, again, I spent the early time just getting to know these guys. So they'd say, hey, Dana. I'd say, hey, Derek. Hey, Dana. Hey, and we would just form a very gentle relationship. But then a day would come and I'd say, hey, let me take you through some core work. That was about 10 to 15 minutes, right? And then I'd send them on their way to go to the next guy. And the same thing. It was like this little machine. And then the day comes when the guy comes in. I said, let me take you through some core. And he goes, what else you got for me? And that's when, again, the introduction starts. So again, you build trust. These guys will let you go further with them because they don't really trust a whole lot of people. And I said, unlike some of the kids I went to school with or guys I went to school with that were going to, gyms like LA Fitness and getting their, learn on, I was working on Formula One race cars and learning. So it was pretty cool, but I didn't know a whole lot. But by being there, I was given the opportunity to learn more and more. And what happens is when they're expecting more of you, you expect more of yourself, and you just keep learning and you keep acquiring knowledge and you get hungry for that knowledge. And then you get excited about the delivery of that knowledge. It's like mortgages. When you first start, you may not know anything, but then you see the people that you've put into homes and changed their life. It gets you excited. How can I get this person into a home, as opposed to, telling them the 9 reasons why you can't get them into a home.
Right.
It's the same kind of thing. You get hungry for solutions.
Right. I had a little dilemma in 2009 because I was a Phillies fan growing up as a kid, but the Yankees were always my American League team, and I always like to have a team from each league. And I had a dilemma there because I was like, well, the Phillies finally won one. I guess I could root for the Yankees, but then my dad, my stepdad, was a big Phillies fan, big baseball fan. He passed away about a year ago suddenly, man. And the fact that I'm having you on the show right now, if he knew about this, he'd probably been trying to sit on my lap during the interview. He's that cool. But my little brother played baseball. My little brother played Division I baseball at Youngstown. He was a catcher, and he just didn't have that same thing, that natural ability. He was work hard, study, all that stuff. But so he works with us now, and he's one of our sales managers. And but yeah, this is it. It's pretty cool. Fact that
was a fun series, man. I'm glad we pulled that off. I got to say, Philadelphia was one of the craziest places to play. I mean, the fans were wild. We took the train down from New York, and I remember on our way up the steps, I mean, we had people throwing batteries at us. It was wild, man. But
I'm not that kind of fan, by the way.
Yeah,
there's some crazy some bitches out there.
But it was really good to kick their ass, after that sort of treatment.
Yeah, and it wasn't as bad. I wasn't that upset really because, like I said, I was a fan too. But it was interesting to see both the teams play together that I grew up watching. So when once you did that for a couple of years, how did you start to advance? What were some of the break points where you started getting?
Interesting. Actually, I had a really interesting. So I started as an intern, right, from 19 to 22. 22, I became the assistant, and I was just basically. Let me talk about 19 to 22. When the team would leave, I'd have to figure out how I'm going to make money. So I was going to school, but at the same time, once I graduated, I was literally training high school athletes at my high school football field for $60 an hour cash. And it was just to sort of keep me afloat, because I knew that if I got a real job, just my personality type, I'm going to want to get to the top of that. So I didn't want to immerse myself in anything. So I kept myself very available for the team. And I finally got that call from Brian Cashman. I mean, after literally stalking him probably every other week, who's the general manager for an opportunity. He gave me one as an assistant. So the head guy, the guy that was hired in front of me, was making about $300,000 a year on a 3-year deal. So I'm like, he just signed that. I'm probably not going to get a shot. But literally a month into our season, there were so many injuries in general that I remember there was a night in Texas. Phil Hughes was throwing a no-hitter through 7 innings on a hot night, and he pulled his hamstring, and I just knew that the organization was going to go on fire because of the media over this, new injury. So the next morning I get a call from our GM, and he's like, hey, can you meet me in my hotel room? And I'm like, oh my gosh, is this going to end now?
Oh man.
And it was like the suite was palatial. It was the size of someone's home. And he's like, come on in, have a seat. And he's like, I just want to let you know that I let the guy ahead of you go this morning. And then it's like that long pause.
This
and
is
we're gonna
great.
make and then he said, and I want to make you the interim head strength coach. Can you handle that? And here I am, 22, probably, moving towards 23. And I said, oh yeah, I can handle it. I got it. And I had that moment. I'm like, I turn around, I don't say a word, and I walk out like, please don't call me back and say I'm just kidding or anything like that. And I turn the corner and I'm like, Dad,
Holy
you're
shit,
not gonna
man.
believe this. I got the head job. And what was cool was because I knew all the players. I remember Jason Giambi coming up to me and saying, hey, listen, man, we got you. Don't worry about it. This was right before my first team stretch where I was running it myself with no help. And they were awesome. These guys are the best in the world. They're amazing people. And they had my back the whole time, which was awesome. So that's how I got the head job. And then, I was there for the next 10 years. It was pretty amazing.
That's awesome, man. Gosh, I love hearing stories like that, man.
Yeah, it's fun. And you know what it is? Again, I go back to, I started as a fan, man. I was just a kid watching the games. And what I realized was at that point, like, you can do anything. There's nothing too big. Like, if you want to go somewhere and you want to do something, you have to just give yourself a chance. Don't worry about somebody else giving you a chance. You have to give yourself a chance. And if you can do that,
right,
and be ready to take some bullets, be ready to be let down, be ready for some failures, but keep going. We've heard that over and over again, but so many people think, oh, I got hit, I'm done. That didn't work out, that's it. And it's like, no, keep walking.
Yeah, use it, right? That's what the rule number one, what are you made of? The Waymo movement.
Yeah.
Rule number one, man, use that as fuel.
Yep.
And another thing, I always say this, setbacks are like being pulled back in a rubber band. That's your setback, right? As soon as that rubber band's let go, man, that's what always happens. If everybody can just wrap their head around that, you cannot fail if you do not quit.
Yep.
Period. So how do you, after you do that at such a young age, how do you top that? Like, what's going through your mind? Like, cause I know
I'm still trying to do that. I'm still trying to figure it out.
I know what goes through your head because you're the type of person that's probably like, I gotta continue to grow. I gotta continue to improve. Yeah. So what's going through your head since then? What are you getting into now?
So, I do, writing books, speaking, and I do a lot of, I still work with athletes, but I've actually started doing, working executive coaching, working with CEOs, working with hedge funds, finance guys, and helping them deal with whatever they're dealing with, which is pretty high, it's high-end stuff. It involves big money, it involves big decisions, and there's big consequences, but there's also, championships to be won for them as well when they get it right. So I love high stakes games. I love people that are high performers and they're all in. So, I work with big companies from Johnson & Johnson to, Wells Fargo, companies like that. I'll go in and work with them. And I'll also work with CEOs, executives, finance. And then I love to write books about, I hate the personal development. I feel like some of that's a little too Pollyanna, but I love writing coaching books. Read my book. I'm going to kick you in the ass and you're going to go do something from the book that I just wrote. That's the way I like to write. So that's what I do now. But I look at everything you do as it's like these different steps. So like right now I'm doing that, and then, okay, we're going to go towards something else. We're just going to keep working, and that something else will start to show itself when the time is right. But I got to always do something big. I don't like doing small stuff, and I don't like to just play in my little area and, be quiet. And that's not my game, and that I learned from my early experience. Cross the fence, man. Cross over. Don't be afraid.
Dude, that's awesome.
Nothing's too big. So if I go after a CEO, I don't want just a Mickey Mouse CEO. I want a guy who's on the chopping block or somebody that, has is in trouble or we got to work through something like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's the way I'm getting fired up. It's hard to sit in this chair, honestly.
Yeah,
Everybody that knows me knows that they're surprised I'm sitting here for this long, just like this. So do you have a proprietary process that you take CEOs through or is it unique on each individual one? Or
It's unique on each one, but I have this, so again, my background is in training, right? Training your physical, training your mental. They go together, but I believe you can strengthen your mental by strengthening your physical. So the first thing I do when I work with somebody is I look at their physical. How is your body? Are you in shape? Do you have the energy? Because energy wins. Yeah. Do you have the ability to play the game at the highest level, or is your energy or your body going to break you? And that's where we start. I get so many people that say, hey, I'm tired, I'm fatigued. They deal with, I'm burnt out, I'm lacking passion. And I tell them, and it's going to sound brash, I say, you're a slob. Let's start cleaning this up, because I don't know anybody that works out and trains and feels worse about themselves after that session, right? Every time you train, you're going to feel better.
Yep.
So we get them on a training program, and while we're training, then we start to work on their head, thinking about and putting practice in place for them to get to their next step.
Yep.
So but my process is 100% individualized. And, that's what coaching is. It's not trying to make any two players the same. It's looking at the player, looking at the skill set, and taking that player to their next position and their next place. For some, it's faster than others. For some, it's slower than others. Some like fast pace, others like slow pace. But as long as we're moving forward, that's what the high performer wants. They want that growth. And if you get it for them, they feel really good about it.
Yep. And then when you're watching your players back in the day, like what does that feel like to see somebody progressing and they were struggling with this area, and you guys know it behind the scenes what you were working on? Nobody else really knows, right? You guys know.
It's amazing. It's amazing when you're reading headlines in a newspaper that talk about Derek Jeter getting older and he's having trouble, going to the hole. He's having trouble, going glove side, and you're working on those things. And all of a sudden that noise quiets down and it's not a problem anymore, or a player that's having an issue, hitting the ball to opposite field or pulling a ball because they can't get their backside through, and you're working on that. That's fun. It's the same thing for a CEO or an executive or a budding entrepreneur that's facing something. You break that out for them and you push them forward. And when they break through, it feels great as a coach. That's what coaching really is. Coaching is a very selfless profession, but it's got very high, rewards and dividends when you get to see your people move forward. That's the reward.
Yep.
And that's the way I always approach it. I never say, hey, I'm a celebrity, I'm a star. Like, my goal is to make my people great. And in return, you get, it's comes back to you.
Right. That's awesome. So the book that you have out, what's the name of it again?
The book's Habits of a Champion. So
okay.
There's the book right there.
There it is.
Habits okay. Nobody becomes a champion by accident. Habits of a Champion. Nobody becomes a champion by accident. Foreword is by Joe Girardi, former Yankees manager, now the Phillies manager.
We got him now. We got
them both linked now.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, Jeter was one of my favorite players of all time, just the way he carried himself. And I don't know if you of course you remember Lenny Dykstra back in the day in Philly. I mean, those two and Chase Utley, those three players just embodied hustle. The way I approach life right now, it's just like I looked at players not because they hit home runs or did different things, but the hustle and effort that they get. That's what always resonated with me.
There's also doing it the right way, right? They played the game the way it was supposed to be played. Yep. And you get players today that don't play. You have players yesterday too that they don't play the right way. Yep. Right? Yep. It's a team game, but again, when those players play the way that they played, they're bringing the energy to that room, right? They're showing when you play hard, when you run hard, here's what happens, right? You inspire your team. You get young guys like you that watch those guys play that never forget it.
Yep. Never will. Never.
People asked Joe DiMaggio that back in the day. They said, hey, Joe, why do you play so hard every night? And he says, you know what? There's a fan somewhere in this stadium that never saw me play before. And I want to show them how to play this game.
I talk about this all the time. What drives me every day, and I'm not a baseball player. I'm not a professional baseball, but I know people are watching. I got my family, my kids, my wife, all 30-some employees that we have, the people that have let down and gave up on me in the past. I know they're watching. And
Yeah.
that's what drives me every single day. If I don't feel like getting out of bed to go work out, or if I don't feel like going and have our sales meeting, that's what drives me. That's exactly that feeling.
Well, the first chapter I got in my book says, do you love to win or do you hate to lose? Right. And they're two different mentalities. And they found that those that hate to lose are the more successful. Those are the people that play with a chip on their shoulder. Those are the people that, yeah, they have something to prove to themselves. And all those people that screwed them or didn't see talent in them back in the day, they want to prove it to them too.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with using that as fuel and motivation. And some people say, well, it's bad energy. It's not the reason why you should be doing something. It's like, listen, I work with guys that are multi-billionaires that said the reason they are where they are is because they never want to go back to the projects in Brooklyn. They could still smell the building and they never want to smell it again. So
yep.
whatever fuels you,
whatever it takes.
Yeah. You know, yep. It's fine.
Well, look, Coach, how can my audience engage with you? And there are the big CEOs, executives that listen to this show. How can they engage with you, and what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, real simple, DanaCavalea.com. I do a daily blog where I talk about all this kind of stuff. And yeah, everything's right there. I got a YouTube channel out of there. Everything's based right there. And the book is signed copies are there, and the book's on Amazon.
And if you scroll down to the bottom of that page, all the social media links are at the bottom too, if you want to check them out, Instagram, Facebook, or what have you. So guys, Go support Coach Dana. Go support him. I'm so thankful to have you on the show, man. I'm a big gratitude guy, and I really appreciate you taking the opportunity to come on here, and I hope we can do something to help you. And if there's anything you ever need or anything I can ever help you with, just reach out, man. I'm always here. I don't know what it would be, but I look forward to playing golf with you sometime too, man.
Anytime, man.
Guys, I appreciate you guys all listening, supporting the Waymo movement. And the book, What Are You Made Of, is coming out summer 2020. I'm excited to get that out into your hands to show you guys how to use your past to your advantage. And please go subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube channel, Mike C-Roc, Ciorrocco. I appreciate all of your support. Until next time, it's your boy C-Roc. Thank you for being a part of the What Are You Made Of podcast. So that you don't miss future episodes, please rate and subscribe to the What Are You Made Of podcast on your favorite listening or viewing apps, and follow me on your favorite social media platforms. I would love to hear your stories of past experiences and engage with you further.